Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Eddie Jennings from EJSLLC.com. This video is another in my practice session series for the Red Hat Certified Specialist in Managing Automation with Ansible Automation Platform exam EX467. Before I dive in, I want to thank returning subscribers for watching another video, as well as invite anyone who's watching, if you haven't subscribed yet, to click the subscribe button and ring the bell when you do, so you can be aware of when new content comes available. Also, a reminder that these are my practice sessions for the exam. I'm going through all of the published objectives from Red Hat's website and either demonstrating whatever it is or talking about the concept behind it. And at the end of the videos, I'll do a little self-assessment. And hopefully, since my exam is just over a week away, about a week and 3 days, I think, I'll feel like I know, what I'm talking about with the objectives. Otherwise, I still have a little bit of time to fill in some knowledge gaps. So that being said, these are not to be considered tutorials, nor should they be considered training materials, nor should they be considered authoritative information. Granted, I do try to have the information accurate because I am practicing for the exams, and I hope what I have learned so far has been correct. But just understand, I put these out on the internet so folks might get some ideas of how they can prepare themselves for the exam, looking at some of the stuff that I'm trying to do to prepare, but understand that these are not to be considered authoritative training materials or the like. So continuing with the Configure Private Automation Hub section of the objectives, we're going to look at upload execution environments to Private Automation Hub. So this is going to be a chance for me to see what kind of recall I have from my last exam. That was like the introduction to Ansible Automation Platform and Ansible Navigator and execution environments and such. And what we're going to do is actually create an execution environment and then upload that to the Private Automation Hub. And I'll show you a couple of different ways, or really it's the, well, yeah, I guess you could technically say it's a couple of different ways of doing it. So I've opened my, my terminal here. We're going to make a directory. We're going to call it EE. And I've already installed Ansible Builder. I did that actually I think I did that a while back, but I tried to install it in the previous video, so I know that it's there. This you do need to have to create an execution environment in case you're asked to do that on the exam. I'm not sure if you will, because the specific objective is, upload the execution environments, but I wouldn't think it unreasonable that Red Hat might have you create one, just because that's kind of a part of the core skills of Ansible Automation Platform. But even if I did know, I couldn't tell you because of NDA and all that good stuff. So what I want to do is use Ansible Builder. Actually, no, before I do that, I have to create, I think it's execution-environment.yml. But let's say you get on the exam and you are like, all right, so here's my objective. I have to create this execution environment, and you freeze and you don't know. Ansible Builder can kind of help you a little bit with that. Let me show you. So Ansible Builder, create. Now, what this is going to do is going to make the skeleton folders of it. But if you have totally blanked and you've forgotten that you need execution-environment.yml, just running Ansible Builder create, the error message will help you out. And that's something to remember for the Red Hat exams. You have available to you whatever, offline documentation comes with the various products, including, stuff that's in Etsy. Often that'll have configuration files that have some example stuff in it, or man pages, or in the case of Ansible, you would have access to whatever local Ansible-doc stuff is available. But you can also utilize error messages, in a pinch to maybe jog your memory of things that you need to know. So we're going to create our execution environment.yml. And this, I'm going to have to use this technique because I don't have everything memorized from when I did this a couple of months ago. I'm not building execution environments all the time, but hopefully I will be doing more of that. So we have version 1. Things off the top of my head that I know, there's going to be it's like default builder args or builder default args. There is an Ansible config. There's also a directive where you can do requirements.yml to talk about any collections and such that you want to include in your execution environment. And there's also I think it's system for that. Collections will be for the requirements.yml, and then there will be a section for system if you need to install particular packages, so bind deps and such. But what I'm trying to remember is it builder default args. Well, it's escaping me at the moment, so Ansible builder create. Oh, I guess just having the version is enough. So let me get rid of context. Probably hear my phone buzzing. That's my Project 99 EverQuest guild saying come raid, but alas, I have to study. So let me go back into execution environment, and we're going to add some nonsense here to make it not be valid, and do Ansible builder create. That's what I want. Build arg defaults. That's what it was. And then dependencies, that's for your requirements.yml. I know that there's a newer version of this. I think version 3, you, instead of having to have a separate file that's requirements.yml, you can just include a YAML list of collections and such, but that's not available in version 1, and I am fairly certain that version 1 is what all this is going to be using. So what I'm going to do, just to make this, we're actually not going to use Ansible config. We'll see if this will do what I want without it. So I really haven't thought through what I want to have for an Ansible configuration environment. All right, so we'll fix the version and build arg defaults. So this will be, I think it's just EE image. No. Is that what it was? EE image? Optional builder image if you want that. Pretty sure those were the things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be using the images that are already in, not the controller, but the automation hub. We're going to use the supported one because it's going to have a bunch of the collections. I think these are to be equal. So that EE image does not look right to me. I think it is execution environment image. We might see if we can find some official documents for that, but this is an example of something that over this next week I'll make sure I do have kind of fresh in my head. I know the builder image piece is correct. I don't remember, because this is kind of odd for YAML to just have the equal sign. So I'm going to go off of my gut feeling and just do what I typically think of for my YAML stuff. And the builder image, let me grab that. This you technically don't have to have, because really what the execution environments are is whatever Python dependencies you have and some version of Ansible core. But I'm wanting to do this kind of the Red Hat way for the exam. I want to say tag latest, even though I think that's implied. All right, so now let's do our Ansible builder create. Yep. Oh, it was EE image, and it's the equal sign as well. Well, there we go. Error message has saved the day. No, that's not what it was. Grumble. I guess technically I don't have to have builder arg. I don't have to have that in there, but I know this bothers me. I feel like I should have this memorized, but it's one of these. I understand the things that you would want to dictate, but when you don't practice it all the time, it'll cause issues. I want to do, we're going to comment this out. I'm curious to see what happens, because I'm fairly sure builder image is the name of that second one. So let's see what happens here. Wait a minute. Builder arg defaults. That is a dictionary. I have my little colon there, but that has to be a key value pair. So dictionary of dictionaries. Why don't I do this? Of course, I forget to silence a lot of my stuff before I make my video. this might tell me what I want. Of course, that did not. But what it might do, let me go into context, because what this is going to do is basically create a container file, EE base image. So, okay, so it's EE base image, EE builder image. That's what I need in it. Grumble. Guess better to rehearse this now than on the exam, right? This is one of these kind of things that, like I said, when you don't use it often, it escapes you. But like the moment you see it, it's like, oh yeah, this is it. So let's rm.rf context folder and EE base image, EE builder image. What I can't remember now is does it need the equal sign or not? So we'll find out, because it's basically going to make the container file as we just saw. Okay, now let's see what happens. It would have been faster just to type the Ansible builder create. All right, so now let's go into the context folder. Yep, container file. Okay, so it was the YAML as we would expect. Now, from this, you can go ahead and make your image. But one thing that I'm going to do is to add my CA certificate, because if I'm needing to run any of the Ansible.controller modules against stuff, I don't want to keep putting like TLS verify faults. And so this should solve that. So what I want to do, of course, there's nothing in build because we did not do the Ansible CFG. That's something else I want to look up, because I remember with the other exam, I would include an Ansible configuration file, and I need to look up exactly what that's going to do for the execution environment, because I really don't think from the automation controller's perspective, it matters that much, because all of that stuff is, for example, where your inventory is and collections and all that is, baked into the execution environment, and your inventories and all that kind of stuff is just a part of what's in your Ansible control node. I'm sure some of you watching this, if you're masters of Ansible, you're like, well, it's obvious you need the Ansible configuration file for this, that, or the other, but it's not coming to me off the top of my head. And the point of doing these practices is seeing, what I can recall and such. And this is showing me that, I need to brush up on this a little bit before the exam. But anyway, I digress. I want to copy into the build directory, which I guess I don't have to do this in build. I could do it just in the context directory. But yeah, I'll do this in the context directory. See if it works. So we're going to copy home, eddy, certs, and we want EGS lab CA. Copy that to here. Let me get the path that I want. I think it's etc PKI, no, TLS. Yeah, that's what I thought. It was PKI, TLS, no, it's CA trust. Source, then anchors. That's what I want. Let's go into our container file, and we are going to add a command copy, and I believe I can do just EGS lab ca.crt, and then the path it's going to go to, and we're going to run update CA certificate. Is it certificate or certificates? I think it's certificates, but we can verify. Oh, it's update CA trust. I think I'm thinking of maybe Ubuntu for that. Or maybe update CA certificates as the package name. But either way, we'll be putting it to the test soon enough. All right, so now we can do our podman build container file. Oh, I think we go up a level with this. Yeah, podman build -f container file. Context directory. I'm misremembering some of my Podman stuff. Podman's not something I touch and deal with all the time. And the tag is going to be lab-hub.internal egslab.com. We are going to put this in the EX3, or we'll do it in the EGS lab namespace. And we will call it EGS lab rel 8. And we'll give it the tag of latest. And let's see what happens. All right, so I'm kind of surprised this just took a moment, because I fully expected this to complain about not being logged in, like using Podman login. But I'm just curious. Podman images. I guess this makes sense. How about that? Because these images really haven't changed as far as the supported and the Ansible builder. Man, has it really been 8 months when I've done that? I guess the installer from Red Hat hasn't changed. All right, so let's do this. This is what happens when I use the same VM as my little management VM when I prepare for different tests. So let's do this. Podman images. No, wait, Podman image RMI. Is that what I want? RMI-A? No, it's Podman RMI-A. That'll kill all the images. There we go. That's what I wanted. Now, Podman login lab, or let me show you what would happen if you weren't logged in. Let's clear this. Let's rerun our building command. There we go. So if you weren't logged in, you would get that. If you were trying to pull an image from something that requires authentication, which of course our internal private automation hub does require authentication. So Podman login, lab hub, internal, egslab.com. I'm just using that default admin account. And now we'll try to build our container image. Another reason why I wanted to do this is because it's going to basically run DNF update for these images, because they're obviously a bit old and out of date as far as their packages. Which is why in the other practice session, when I talked about the initial configuration stuff you would do for Automation Controller and Private Automation Hub, if it were me in a production environment, I might keep the original execution environments that came with it, but I would definitely have some that are basically constantly synced from the Red Hat Automation Hub. Or maybe not necessarily from Red Hat Automation Hub, but from like registry.redhat.io, so they're up to date. But I guess it might not matter that much, because it's not like these are publicly facing containers that are always running. It's just running at the time. And I guess also you can make the argument of you're building these containers specifically for what you need in your environment. You might not want them updating all the time, but maybe when I do this in a production environment, I might change my mind with how that kind of stuff works. But it's good to know the options are there. All right, so we should have an image. So let me do Podman images. And that should both show the image that we just created, as well as the ones that were pulled down to create the image. So method one of getting the image into Automation Hub is going to be using Podman push. So we'll do Podman push lab. And of course you have to be authenticated for this. This should, famous last words in IT, just work. All right, so that takes a few moments, no errors. So let's go into Automation Hub. And we'll go into our execution environments. And here is EGS lab, and here is our execution environment. There's our image. And if we wanted, we can pull that down using Podman. Now what I'm actually going to do is delete the image. And I understand that the data is going to be lost. Another way of doing this is with Scopio. And so let's say that you have just the tar archive of an image. You can upload that image using the Scopio command. So first, let's see if I can remember how to get the tar archive from something that's already on the system. I think it's Podman Export, and then we give it the image name, or I would think that's what that was. I'm trying to remember. Again, since I did the Podman stuff, that was several months ago, and I generally do not work in an environment that uses a lot of containers, so it's not something that's fresh in my head, which is one of the reasons why I'm practicing it. Let's just see what happens when I feed it the container image. Oh yeah, you have to have the output file. So let's do podman export real quick. Okay. Podman export, and the output file is going to just be eegslab-rel8.tgz, and we will give it the name of see if this works. Not the name of see if this works, but the name of the container image, and see if this works. Maybe we have to give it the image ID instead, unless I mistyped that somehow. Well, image ID should work, I would hope. So let's see what happens. All right, this is weird. So some of you watching are, again, probably going, Eddie, you don't know what you're doing. Well, you might be right, or I'm just misreading stuff. What I want to do is, of course, it can't find a container because there is no container actually this. We need to get the image. That I don't remember. So it might be in Podman image. Import. Thought there was a way. I'm sure there has to be. Maybe it's Podman save, probably. Okay, I think this is what I'm wanting. Now I remember. Yeah. Is you would tell it that you want format like OCI archive. Yeah, this is, now it's kind of coming back to me. So we're going to want Podman save compress. We have to give it an output file. I'm going to use OCI archive for the format, or maybe not. We'll just keep the default for format. Do -- compress, and then an O. All right, let's try this again. So Podman save. I actually can kind of recall when I was working with the Introduction to Containers exam, having to take some time to try to memorize Podman save versus Podman export. It's like it's coming back to me. It's riding a bike, right? So anyway, so we'll do Podman -o eegslab-rel8.tgz compress, and the image that we want to use. Now we're getting our tab completion. Let's see what happens now. All right, so that is only applicable to Docker Deer, so we'll just say it's tar, which should be fine enough. At most, it's going to be, 2 gigabytes, right? Or so we think. It's not quite doing what I expected yet. It's going to complain. I'm probably going to run out of space. No, it actually made it. Let me ignore this. You have other stuff too. Did it make both of them? Oh, it didn't actually make TGZ. Yep, 2 gigabytes. Okay, so I think what it did, no, a little copying the blob and such made me think it's like downloading the image from lab.internal, but I guess it's not. Anyway, the whole point of doing all that is I wanted to show you that you can use Scopio, which I believe I have installed, copy, and if you have a local tar archive, you have to use the docker-archive. I guess I don't have Scopio installed. So step 1, install Scopio. So now, Scopio copy, and all the Scopio commands, or at least the ones I'm familiar with, you have to prefix, I guess, the old Docker stuff with it, but Docker archive, should be Docker archive, to Docker lab hub internal egslab.com. I might have to do Scopio login for this, but we'll see what happens. EGS lab and EGS lab rel 8 latest. Let's see what happens here. I guess it took the login from Podman, which, you know, now that I'm thinking about it, there was nothing for Podman to pull down because we got rid of that image. So yeah, that's just how that looks when it's working locally. Good to know. Again, it's not something I touch all the time, as quite evident in this video. All right, no errors. So let's refresh our execution environments. And there it is. Created a minute ago. Last modified a few seconds ago, so I guess that makes sense. So that's two ways of pushing. You can either use Podman push for a container that's already installed. You may be able to do that with a tar archive. Honestly, I'm not sure, but you can definitely use Scopio with a tar archive. You could also use Scopio if you're copying an execution environment from somewhere else. But odds are what you'd probably want to do there is you would want to set up the remote registry like we did, which I've obviously done a reinstall of this and I've taken away the ones from Red Hat. But you would set up a remote registry and do your get your execution environment that way. But if you wanted, you could use Scopio copy to copy from one container registry to your lab internal. So for the objective, my little assessment here, there's some nuts and bolts about creating execution environments that I'm obviously rusty on because I haven't done that in a while. But I think if I had to do this on the exam, I had to make stuff from scratch and all that, I would eventually do it. I'd be slower than I want. So I might try to rehearse a couple of times creating execution environments. But as far as the specific objective, upload execution environments to Private Automation Hub, I feel pretty confident with that. So as always, I hope you found the video useful and hopefully you enjoyed it and maybe you got a laugh at watching me make some mistakes. If you did enjoy the video or find it useful, make sure you do click like on the video and feel free to share it with others. I want to thank returning subscribers for watching another video and encourage you to click that subscribe button if you have not subscribed yet. As always, thank you for your time and I will see you the next time.